The Lifestyle Show, presented by Selena Mackenzie.
Now, the way we are working in a post-pandemic world is forever changed. Our first guest book is about how to make working work for you, packed with expert analysis, examining ahead of the curve trends, as well as the old habits we need to lose. Here to tell us about the future-proof career, welcome to the show, Isabel Berwick.
Hi, Selena.
Hi there. The main change I always think about, and I really don't think it's healthy, is everybody working remotely now. People aren't socialising at work as much.
Yeah, that's true. But actually, smart companies are saying come into the office, and giving things like free food or perhaps a speaker. They're encouraging connection between their staff in a way that perhaps they weren't doing before. But I mean, plenty of companies aren't doing that and just letting people work at home, not seeing anyone from one end of the week to the other.
Yeah. The book apparently is split into two sections, staff and managers. So is it a guidebook for both?
Yeah, because most of us are one or the other or both at different times in our careers. And the way we respond to problems probably depends on whether we're managing a team or whether we're a member of a team. So I just decided to, make that flip. Hopefully different bits of it will be useful for people at different parts of their career.
I had to smile, actually, Isabel, because when I received the press release, it says, Isabel can answer questions like, is my toxic boss an actual narcissist? Tell us more.
Yeah, so we're all aware that the word narcissist has become, can I say, overused. But a true narcissist, and, the studies show that among top leaders, there's a slightly higher than average percentage of narcissists because you need some pretty self-interested ambition to get to those posts. So the difference between a bad boss and a narcissist is one of extremity, actually. I think if there's bad intention on the part of the boss, and also that they are constantly trying to make themselves look good and the rest of their team look bad, that stuff, what might commonly be called gaslighting, that stuff is what separates a narcissist from a bad boss. But I think if you're in a difficult work situation, your first job is to untangle whether your boss is bad or whether there's something deeper going on. I mean, most bosses are just untrained and not very good at the job. Many managers don't get any training at all.
Really? That surprises me.
A majority get no training at all.
Wow. It's crazy, isn't it, to just want to look after yourself as a boss and maybe drop your team under the bus, because at the end of the day, a good company would know that the buck stops at the top. Even if your subordinates do wrong, you're the manager, you're the overall CEO or whatever, so the buck stops with you.
It does. And there are many companies who understand that and look for managers that essentially do what managers are meant to do, which is to get the best out of their team, help them in their careers, help them do their best work. But I think we've all seen over the years that, for example, if you've got a manager who's earning a lot for the company, is perceived as valuable for the company in monetary terms, they've been allowed to get away with terrible behaviour historically.
I did an interview yesterday, actually, all about AI and the pros and cons. How do you feel about it in the workplace? Will AI eventually replace us?
No, I don't think it will replace us. I think we're at a really interesting point. And I talk about this a little bit in the book, although mostly my book's about being human in the workplace. And that stuff won't change. Essentially, the tech will be a tool that we can use, but we still have to get on with each other. And I think the people who will thrive in an AI-driven workplace will be the same people who thrive now, i.e. the ones who can work in teams, the ones that other people want to work with. So I think AI will take some jobs, but it's not clear yet what the patterns are. We're at a very, very early stage. I just read something today, actually, that said if you think about how the internet developed, we're kind of at the year 1995 in terms of what AI is. So if we think back to 1995, I think I was just getting email. That was a really new thing. So think about how much we've, developed since 1995 in terms of the internet. That's how early we are with AI. So there's everything to play for. I mean, if you're worried about your job, there are things you can do, like take an entry-level AI course, play around with it yourself. Lots of people start off with AI on their phones, put ChatGPT or Claude on the phone and so I use it, for example, to say, these are the ingredients I've got, what shall I cook? Stuff like that.
Clever.
Really helpful. Yeah. Open your fridge, see what you've got and see what Claude or ChatGPT says you should cook for dinner. I think you'll find it's really interesting.
Yeah, I do like ChatGPT, actually. I use it a lot. But it was interesting. This guy was saying yesterday, because I said, people are going to lose their jobs. What's going to happen? And he said, but everybody thought that back in the Industrial Revolution. And some people did, it hit farmers hard. But it's all about evolving. Look where we are now.
And some people will lose their jobs, but there will also be jobs created that perhaps we can't even understand what they are now. So the numbers, the number and weight of jobs that we have now were sort of unthinkable when I started work. The kind of marketing, product development, software development. These jobs may change. For example, marketing is one area that's going to be very disrupted by AI. They will still need marketers because we still need that kind of human quality level. People like people. So just like lawyers, I think, won't go out of business, or maybe we'll have fewer lawyers, but clients still want to talk to their lawyer or their accountant. They don't just want to talk to a bot.
We've noticed it actually at the radio station, because we don't need to employ so many voiceover artists to do adverts anymore, because we can just get AI to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But there might be instances where you want quality control, don't you? So I'm sure there are people supervising what's going on.
One would hope so. Not my department, but one would hope so. One thing I did want to ask you, because I'm not quite in touch with what's going on in the UK, are they considering a 4-day working week?
No, I think that's something that was incredibly popular as an idea after the pandemic. I think the Labour government is interested in embedding the right to flexible work. So that's something that we might see coming in. But the 4-day week, I think, is probably a step on the road to something else. I think the value of flexibility overall is perhaps much more applicable than just a pure 4-day week, which is difficult to implement in lots of sectors. If you're in, for example, hospitality or, always on frontline services, a 4-day week is hard. I mean, those shift work already does that to a certain extent, and they've built that in. But for your general office worker, the right to have a more flexible approach when you need it, if you need to leave early to pick the kids up from school sometimes, that's much more valuable than a rigid 4-day week for many people.
Yeah, I think flexi hours are a good idea, because in my eyes, as long as you're getting the job done, it doesn't matter what hours you do to make it happen. You just need results. Exactly.
And I think really good leaders see that they're output focused. So it's not how many hours you're sitting on that chair. It's what the quality of the work is. But I'm afraid there are still too many people that are interested in presenteeism. And a lot of this return to office narrative, people have to come in 5 days a week. A lot of that is down to people's attachment to seeing their staff sitting on chairs 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, regardless of the quality of the output.
Yeah. And of course, we know now how unhealthy that is as well, don't we? I mean, people sometimes stand at desks, or they have alarms telling them when to go for a walk. We used to just sit at desks for 8 hours a day, as you say.
I think the pandemic really made a lot of people see differently about that, because if you were working at home when you'd previously been in office, you probably would exactly that, go for a walk before and after work. For example, that's what I used to do, just to put kind of like bookends around the working day where a commute used to be. And I think taking those breaks, thinking about our mental and physical health, is something we're doing a lot more of now.
Yeah, quite right. I've got another one from your press release, which I have to say I don't understand. Are full stops in emails a sign of hostility? I'd never even thought about that.
No. So there's a lot. I think a really interesting topic at the moment at work is digital communication. And there are great differences between how generational cohorts, so millennials, Gen X, boomers, and now Gen Z, the youngest people in the workplace, how they communicate online. And for Gen Z, a full stop or period at the end of a text or a message is taken as a sign of sort of slightly passag hostility. They tend to leave them off.
Oh dear.
And if you've got listeners who have teenagers, they'll probably see when they're texting, they're not putting that on the end of anything. So, but for older people, it's correct punctuation. I will always put a full stop on the end of things. And there's other things like when my kids would text me to say they'd achieved something or done something, I would send them back a thumbs up emoji. But for many younger people, a thumbs up emoji has a negative connotation. No. It's almost like, it's ironic. So, it could be, if you're a boss doing that, it could be construed by your younger team members that you're having a go at them.
This is quite scary because I use thumbs up all the time and full stops. Oh dear, I'm going to have to get down with the kids and get with the programme. What's happening at the moment in the UK about paternity leave? I've noticed that's changed over the years. Quite rightly, fathers are being thought of as well as mothers taking maternity.
Yeah, I mean, there are really very generous rights to paternity leave in a lot of companies. So you get a couple of weeks anyway, but for many companies, they offer extended paternity leave. So you could share a year's parental leave between two partners, so 6 months each, for example. But very few men take that up. It's interesting. And in fact, some of the experts in equality at work would say that we won't really have equality at work for women until men start to take up their full rights in terms of parental leave, paternity leave. For men, it's still perceived as perhaps having a negative impact on their career trajectory, whereas it's expected for women that you might have 6 months or a year off work. So I think that's an area that the rights are there for a lot of people, but it's that a lot of them are not being taken up.
Are workplaces generally in the UK taking into account the menopause for females?
Yeah, quite a lot of them are. In fact, I get so many press releases about this. It's sort of slightly overwhelming. It's like it was something that no one talked about at all. And then suddenly it's become sort of the topic. I think it's great that lots of workplaces are thinking about this. And for many people, for a lot of men, this might be something they hadn't really thought about. But I would caution that I think the needs of older workers generally need to be taken into account. And, the menopause is part of it. So are caring responsibilities. So are long-term health responsibilities. And this could affect, people of both sexes. So there's a wider conversation that I think very forward-looking workplaces are having about supporting older workers to stay in the workforce. And in fact, for women particularly, women over 50 are the fastest growing cohort in the UK workforce. So more women are staying at work for longer now than used to. And I suppose it's difficult to prove, but you could probably say that's because they're better supported, more people are on HRT, and employers are more understanding than they used to be.
And of course, we're living longer, aren't we, as well?
Yeah, we need to work for longer. And some of the ageism that's still built into too many workplaces, I'm afraid, is really counterproductive because we're going to have a talent shortage. And in fact, a multi-generational workforce is really desirable. You've got older people who've got wisdom about the working world, and you've got younger people coming in who are bringing their perspective. And the mix of all of that is really productive and excellent. So discriminating against people just because they're over 45 or over 50, I think is going to become a much bigger issue in the years to come. I think it's going to become completely unacceptable. There are still pockets where people get away with it, I'm afraid.
What is microdosing, Isabel?
So microdosing, taking tiny amounts of mushrooms, psilocybin. Oh. So it started on the west coast of America. Lots of tech people are into it. So you just take a tiny bit, and it's supposed to help you with your productivity, your thinking, your clarity. So I think that's a big trend. It has come here. It's mainly in the tech scene. But I think for younger people particularly, that's something that many of them have on their menus. It's quite easy to get wrong. Obviously, you don't want to turn up to work trippy.
No, you certainly don't. You certainly don't. Well, it sounds like a very interesting book. It's called The Future-Proof Career, A Comprehensive Guide to Work-Life Balance and Success in the Workplace. And it's written by Isabel Berwick, who is a 2025 Financial Times editor we have here. I want to thank you for joining us. It's opened my eyes to a few things. No more thumbs up and full stops, that's for sure.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.